Hello, grade 10s, and welcome to our new unit on measurement. What's nice about measurement is it's something that's practical, something we see around us all the time. In this unit, we are going to look at the metric system called SI versus the imperial system. We are going to look at being able to convert between values, metric to metric, imperial to imperial, and between the two of them. Those conversions are important because we live in a society and work in a society that actually uses both systems. So having a bit of an understanding about the relationship will be important. We're also going to focus on perimeters and areas of shapes. And this is not new. These are processes you've seen before. So hopefully it will be nice and straightforward. And then we'll take that perimeter and area work, especially the area work, and look at surface area of three-dimensional shapes. Again, concepts you were introduced to in previous math classes. So this whole unit here right now, except for a little bit of the measurements, the actual measurements of things, it's review. So let's jump into the first lesson. Quick, short little lesson. So let's go. What we are looking at, actually, if we can start, let's go to page 9. We're going to jump around a little bit because I think it makes more sense in terms of some of the material that's in there to work in different order. So let's start with page 9 and look at basically the imperial system and the metric system. So the vocabulary we're going to be talking about a lot, the SI measuring system, which is the, and I apologize for my pronunciation, System International de Unit, or the metric system. The metric system is what we tend to use in Canada. We think of ourselves as a country that uses the metric system because we talk in terms of centimeters for lengths, or meters for lengths, or kilometers, but also because we talk in terms of grams and kilograms for how heavy things are. These are all metric system measures. And what's really great about the metric system and that what makes it easy to use is everything's based on tens. That we have, every time we go from a unit to a unit, it's because we get 10 of the smaller unit and that results in the next unit, which is great because then we're functioning in a decimal-based system. And a decimal-based system is easy to work with. The base units for the metric system, if we're measuring lengths, are meters. Because meters, we have smaller types of meters, centimeters, millimeters, and decimeters. Maybe not something you're as familiar with. And we have larger ones like kilometers. But we also have hectometers and decameters. And there's a reason we have those, and we'll talk about those in another lesson. If we're doing how much something weighs, the mass of it, we talk in terms of grams. But grams, like meters, smaller versions of a gram is a centigram or a milligram. Larger versions of a gram is like a kilogram. So metric system, everything's based on this decimal system and multiples of 10. Last one is capacity, volume. Liters. How much does it take to fill something? Well, liters is the base unit, but again, we could have smaller versions of that, centiliters, milliliters. We could have bigger versions of that, kiloliters. Metric system works the same, which is really nice. Then when we go to the imperial system, it is not a decimal system, mainly because over time, every time they needed a new type of measure, they would create everything was developed at different times to meet the different needs. So it's not like it's a base 10 system, nice and easy. 12 inches in a foot because, well, they had inches and they thought, well, we need something else. Well, let's use 12 of these because 12 of these things is kind of close to a foot. So it's not consistent like the metric system. The imperial system, it's based on things like miles for lengths, feet for lengths, and in terms of weight, it's based on pounds and ounces. And these relationships aren't nearly as straightforward as the metric. Now, we do, even though we're a metric country, Canada will use a lot of things that are imperial system. We talk in terms of how tall we are, a lot of people, feet and inches. Some people still describe lengths as miles instead of kilometers. This is because the imperial system is used in the USA and they're a big influence on us. So, the imperial system, they use an inch, which is abbreviated with an IN, and you'll see it as a double tick. So if you had like 3 inches, it would be 3 with a double tick. Now, the inch, the referent is, why did they come up with it? I mean, years and years and years ago, before they had inches, they would measure things by thumbs. If they had to buy something and they wanted a small bit of it, well, I'm going to buy 5 thumbs of it. And so that is where then inches developed from. A foot, well, foot is abbreviated FT, and it's abbreviated with a single tick. So 3 feet would be identified as 3 with the single tick. And a foot, the reference, would have been basically just that, 1 shoe length. But you can see why over time, everyone has different shoe sizes. So to be consistent and to be useful, they came up with a very universal understanding. Hey, this is what a foot's going to be. A foot is going to be like 12 thumbs, 12 inches in a foot, because different people had different shoe lengths. So you're saying, oh, it's 3 feet long. Well, a really petite female compared to a monstrous male, their shoe lengths, 3 feet, would be very different. A yard, similar to our meter. A yard was a full pace. So these are reference that they used to come up with this, abbreviated YD. And then the other common one is a mile, abbreviated MI. So, imperial system influences us, not as nice to work with because the metric system is based on those tens. So, to start with, in terms of calculations, let's actually go to back now. I apologize, flipping around a bit. Go back, please, to page 4, I believe it is, where it says measuring and reading rulers. So with measuring and reading rulers, we'll start to take a look at how the two systems differ. We're used to seeing in the metric system, kilometers, meters, centimeters, like I was just saying, a ruler that's marked like this with all these really small lines. Well, the reason they have small lines is because when we measure with a ruler, each whole value is a centimeter. So this big long line is 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. And based on what I just said, each tick is a millimeter. But again, there's 10 of them in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 ticks get us to a centimeter. So a millimeter is 1/10 of a centimeter. And so based on tens. But what's nice, instead of working with a fraction, we can work with 1/10 of a centimeter, the decimal part. So that's what's nice with the metric system. Everything can be thought of as decimals. If we take a look at 1A and 1B. How long is each line? Well, first, as we move on, you're going to have to recognize metric system or imperial system. Because we see these little lines in between, we count them, there's 10 of them. We know we're looking at metric, the system international, the metric, the unit. Anyways, this line, we see that this line occurs past 3, so we know we have 3 whole centimeters, and then we look to see what line it's at. You could argue whether that's a 4 or 5. I would probably accept both. This is 3 and 4/10 centimeters. 3 whole centimeters, and then 4/10 of the way to the 4. 3 and 4/10. B, same idea. Going along, we see that we get to 8 whole centimeters, and then how many of the lines do we get to? We're getting to 8/10. So this would be 8 and 8/10 of a centimeter, 8.8, because it's not quite at the 9, and metric is based on tens. Hopefully, you have a ruler around your house. You can check these measures. I suggest you do it, give it a try. What you will see if you measure them, I measure this to be 5 and 6/10 or 56 millimeters. Because if I go to 5 and 6/10, 5 whole, and then 6/10 of a millimeter, well, don't forget that each centimeter is 10 millimeters. So 10 more takes me to 20, to 30, to 40. There's 50 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the 6. There's our 56 millimeters. And the one underneath that, I would say is 3 and 3/10 centimeters or 33 millimeters. So, metric ruler, nice because it's decimals and broken into tens. But in the imperial system, we don't have 10 pieces like 10 millimeters in a centimeter. Inches and feet, well, we don't measure just with a ruler feet because most rulers are about a foot, 12 inches. But we can see on this ruler, instead of being broken into 10, each whole inch, to go from 0 to 1 inch, we can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pieces. So we can't use a decimal because decimal system is based on tens. So for this case, this ruler is divided into eighths, 1/8. The ruler is divided up in between the whole inch marks by eighths, 1/8. So that's going to help us to come up with how long something is because there's 8 pieces. If I said I want this measure here to that point, well, we see that we get to 2 holes. So that's 2 inches. But now if we know there's 8 pieces to make the next hole, we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're at the 6th piece out of 8. So if these are 8 pieces, this length here, this far, is 2 and 6/8 inches. We can't put 2.6 because it's not out of 10, it's out of the 8. Decimals are out of 10. That's why metric uses decimals. However, 6 and 8 should always reduce to 2 3/4 inches. Now, what's different about the ruler underneath, it's still inches. Imperial inches is what that says. So we still have 1 inch and 2 inches and 3 inches. But this time if we count, and you count the little ticks, there are 16 ticks making up 1 whole inch. There's 16 of them. So in this case, how many? There's 16 ticks, so we're dealing with 1/16. Each tick is 1/16 of an inch. So if I wanted to measure this length here, let's say we wanted that, well, what we would be looking at is 3 whole inches, and now I count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're at 6 16th pieces. The reason you get different length lines is that way it's easy to read. The next longest line here, if we count, is actually at 8 16ths. Why is that significant? Because that's a half. So the different lengths make it easy to read, but in this case, we ended up, for our measure, at 3 holes and 6 16ths of an inch, but we should always reduce. In this case, we could reduce by 2, 3 and 3/8 of an inch. So, do you like fractions? I don't know. It's up to you. Take a look at the 2 examples there. How long is each line? Well, we don't even have to count, actually. A lot of rulers will tell you what kind of rules or markings they are. So for us, here we're at 2 holes, and now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8, 2 and 5/8 inches. For this line here, we're not even at the 1, so we just put the fractional value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is simply 5/8 of an inch. No whole number because we haven't even gotten to a whole inch yet. So, next couple, what's the difference here? Well, now we recognize the other ruler. We're looking at a 16th ruler now. We could check, but there are, from 0 to 1, we have 16 pieces, so we're looking at 1/16 for the ruler. So for this length here, we're at 3 holes, and we can see that we're at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We're at 14 16ths, which would be 3 7/8 of an inch. This example underneath, 2 holes, and we're at 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 16ths of the way, so 2 9/16, and that won't reduce. So the imperial system, because it's not based on breaking an inch into 10 pieces like it is in metric, well, that's why we break it into putting it as a fraction. So, if you take a look now, you have 2 there that you can measure yourself. And in that case, those, I hope you have a ruler. A lot of rulers will have both metric and imperial on them. I believe I measured this to be 1 3/4 inches, and this one to be 2 5/8 of an inch. Give it a try. Practice. Not a ton to do with this. Nice short unit, but you need to be familiar with the 2 of them. Page 7 and 8. Get those examples done. Not real complicated, but make sure you have fun.